Or
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Welcome to workshop for the Golden City Council, a budget workshop. Shelley, would you please take roll call?
Theone Wheeler,
not on yet.
Steve Johnston,
Absent.
Lauren Meeker,
Absent.
Ellie Casey, Andy Holm,
Here.
Danielle Clevidence,
Here.
Myland Walling.
Here. Okay. Is there a motion to excuse those that are absent?
Those who got a hold of you, yes.
Okay.
So do you want to do it individual?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to excuse Steve Johnston? So moved.
Second. Oh,
Okay, a motion and a second to excuse Steve Johnston. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay, it passed. Is there a motion to excuse Theone Wheeler?
I so move.
A motion and a second to excuse Theone Wheeler. Any discussion? Has she called in at all, or? I never heard from her. Did you, Sandy?
No.
No, she didn't call in.
We can fill out.
So, motion and a second, unless there's any further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So
3 nays and 1 yes.
Yes. Okay. Is there a motion to excuse Councilmember Lauren Mayer?
Oh, a motion? Yes.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And again, just for, I guess, the record, if you have called in here.
I have not heard from him. Have you, Sandy?
No.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Excuse. Okay, thanks. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. We're not taking public comment. We don't have a public here for this. So we'll move on to the next item. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? We have no consent agenda, just the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. We'll move on to the item on the agenda, the under council business, the budget workshop. And would you like to start with that, Sandy?
Well, we'll just start with Sarah. She's
Okay, Sarah.
she's online.
Oh, hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, happy to be here.
You're
So I'm
so-
gonna share
Oh,
my
you can
screen.
See, or do you want to move over to this other side? Okay.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen here. So we're here tonight to talk about the budget. And what you're seeing here on your screen is kind of the big overview snapshot of the 2026 budget.
This is that 26 budget
Yeah.
first sheet.
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is we have this split up by fund. And your current expense fund will also be referred to as your general fund. And that's where police, fire, and kind of your general services are. That's where your property taxes come in and a lot of your business and occupation taxes as well for income. And what we're starting with in this section up above is your fund balances that are rolling over from 2025. So essentially what we're estimating what your ending kind of cash balance is for each of your various funds from 2025. So that's kind of same format as what we were doing to get those numbers. So what we did is we took your ending 2024, which has been audited, and then we're saying these are your expected revenues and expenditures through the rest of this current fiscal year. And then whatever that amount is, so 632,000 for your general fund, that's what we're pulling over here as your amount that's coming in. So essentially this is our starting fund balances. So we start with the budget with our starting fund balances, and then we determine what your expected revenues are and your expected expenses are, and that leaves us with our what we anticipate for your 2026 budget to be your ending fund balances. So this green bar here is one of the things that we're looking at tonight, which is what your ending fund balances are. And then the second thing that is really going to take a lot of our attention tonight is this line here, which is essentially are you anticipating having more income than you have expenditures? So we ideally want to get to the point where these are all positive numbers, or you'll see these two funds are zero. So we've balanced that where we're budgeting for our revenues to equal our expenditures. So that's kind of where we're going. That's kind of, this is the form that's going to be kind of the end result for the budget. So I know that in the past, you haven't been as involved with this. So I'm going to kind of go over how we got to some of these numbers. We're going to go through each of the funds. And then as you have questions, please let me know as we go through this. The main fund, as we talked about before, is this Fund 1, which is your current expense fund or your general fund.
Blunt.
Be made full screen.
I think it can if we make you the host.
Okay.
Oh, wait, that's there. If I make you the host and then you share your screen, I think it takes out everything else.
Okay, so I will stop sharing and then share again. Let's see if that fixes that. Did that improve the picture for you
No,
all?
actually, I think if we just take off. There. That's as bigger as you're going to be able to get.
Okay.
So, like I said, one of the things that we did throughout this process, the way that we started, and I'm going to start with the revenue side, is this is an exported report from your system that the city uses to track your finances. And what we have here is we ran this report through June 30th of 2025, so halfway through your year. And then for most of these, what we then did is, okay, what do we expect it to be for the full year? Let's double it. And for some of these, that's what we did. You can see here that this is just, the anticipated, the local sales and use tax times 2. That's because since it was for the first 6 months of the year, that's what we anticipate to have for the rest of the year. Some of these, as we went through, we looked at historical data. So for the expected for 2025, we actually went and looked at your historical kind of property taxes and what you've got in from the county. So some of these, like I said, numbers are coming from kind of annualizing, which is what we call it when you're taking kind of the year to date and then extrapolating out as if it was at that same rate. So we've annualized most of these numbers, and then some of them we've gone and looked at historical data to get those. So we've shown that here as this either increase or decrease through a lot of these numbers. And that then leaves us with our budget for 2026. And so these numbers then pull through here to this kind of main spreadsheet that we're looking at. And that's how we're arriving at this expected revenue of $3.5 million for the year. So for your current fund, your general fund, this is, like I said, mostly property taxes, business and occupation taxes. You've got some shared state revenue that the state lets you know kind of what percentage that you expect to get for some of these taxes, such as your liquor tax and your liquor profits here. So you have a couple of charges for goods and services, fines and penalties, miscellaneous revenue. You can see in those details in the forms in front of you kind of what makes up those that income for general fund. And then we did the same thing for expenses. The difference is that for our revenue side, we annualized most of these numbers. Then we went and talked to department heads about specific questions. What do you anticipate? Do you think you're going to get this grant? What do you think's remaining on this? And then for the expenditure side, we did a blanket across the board, anticipating a 2% increase in expenditures. And then that same method of annualizing. Hey, we've spent X amount for the first 6 months do you anticipate this just doubling and annualizing for the year? Or do you know of a reason where, you paid it in January, you're not going to pay it again until next January? And we went and met with each of the department heads and talked about their specific sections in there. And that's how we arrived at our expenses. The other kind of large component of this from the expenditure side is payroll costs. And we did some, I don't think I have that file pulled up. Let me open that right now. And for the payroll, we made some assumptions because you're still in negotiations about some of the pay increases, but we split it out to the different departments. Police is anticipating a 5% increase. Fire and legislative is going to stay the same. Finance and some of the other staff is a 3% increase, and then public works is a 3% increase. So this is then pulled through to our expenditure side. So we kind of have three different ways that we're coming up with these expenditures. And that is annualizing, like we talked about, where we're just taking this amount and doubling it. We talk to specific department heads about what they anticipate some of their expenditures to be, especially for large ticket items, capital expenditures. And then we have linked in from the payroll file where we went through each department and talked about kind of the different types of increases that you were anticipating. So that is kind of what makes up your expense side. And we went through that for all of your various funds. And then we started looking at, okay, some of these funds were budgeting at a deficit, meaning that you were gonna spend more money than you were taking in. We also, one of the changes in here, or not changes, but one of the things that's included in here is your COPS grant, right? So we have one individual in the payroll file that is your anticipated new hire for the COPS grant. And then we also have the first year, that $40,000 income for the grant associated with it. So
You guys all remember what the comps grant is?
Mhm.
Okay.
okay. So what that leaves you with is a good position, which is that your general fund anticipates having $73,000 in the positive, or just for this year. So that's just saying just for 2026, we think we're going to bring in 3.5 million. We're going to spend 3.5. There's a $73,000 in your favor where you're going to build up this reserve, which is why this is going to hopefully be about 700,000 at the end.
Question real quick on that. So that $73,000, is that also adding in the $632,000 from that was left over from 2025?
So, yes. So essentially this is whatever amount you had as your beginning fund balance, plus your revenues, minus your expenditures, and that leaves you with your 706,000. So the 73,000 is just purely only from 2023. So most
2025.
I'm sorry, 2026.
Okay.
So your budget.
Okay, so that's how much we would have. So we will be spending, we anticipate spending that 632,000 that we should have left over into that. And by spending that, that'll be gone at the end of next year. And all we're going to have is the 73,000.
No. So it's that at the end of 2026, you should have $706,000.
I got you. Okay. I got you.
And
So
it's
the
just that
bottom one is just what we will be increasing the difference between 25 and 26.
That's what I was trying to figure out, if it was just increasing it more or if that's
Yeah.
going to be the end balance. I got it.
so the green line is your ending balance.
Right.
And this line right here, let me just color that something so it's easier to talk about. This orange line here is what you're going to make or spend, have your kind of what the change is going to be between 25 and 26.
Okay.
And that kind of
That's like
funnels
our
into
period.
your ending balance.
More than what our ending balance is.
That's the thing that's really goal is living within our means, not dipping into our cash reserves, going into the red.
Mhm.
And on top of that, we're carrying a little bit more over.
Which is great because we can we use this money for grants, a grant,
Matching.
yeah, grant matching and things like that.
And just general rainy day fund.
Right,
You
right.
know,
I think that's
I
wonderful.
see a lot of municipalities get in big trouble when they're not able to carry over enough, and then when something happens.
That's why I was that's why I wanted to clarify to make sure that we weren't gonna end.
Well,
it.
there was discussions of like, you know, the animal control officer, but that would come out of that 73 plus part. There's not enough money in there to cover another person.
Right.
Otherwise, then
We
we're
would
going
dip you in and
into
we'll keep on.
into
going,
those
yeah.
cash reserves, and eventually you run out of your cash reserve
That's the danger.
to do that. So
Yeah. Totally makes sense.
So for this general fund, one of the things I wanted to point out is this, we're left with this 73,000. Out of this funded, part of this expenses is transfers. So you are completely funding pretty much 100% your Parks and Rec fund. We're transferring $207,000, almost $208,000 to your Parks and Rec fund. We're only budgeting, anticipating getting about 400 from services. So Parks and Rec is very closely tied to your general fund. So right now, that's how this is zeroing out and balancing, is you're transferring money from your general fund and it is subsidizing your Parks and Rec fund. Similarly, your streets fund right now, which we don't anticipate having a lot of activity in for 2026 because you don't have a lot of projects going on. This is pretty much just your cost of operations. And your cost of operations exceeds what you have right now as your baseline income that you've allocated to streets. So streets right now is balanced because we, in this budget, are transferring funds from economic development to streets in order to get this to balance. So this is one of the ways we can get this to balance. If you choose, you can, not transfer that, and this can be in a deficit situation, and this rolled over cash fund balance that you had of 78,000 would just be reduced by 22. So one of the choices that you might want to talk about is, it looks like from a systemic year-over-year perspective, streets is not going to be fully funded. You're going to every year need to either subsidize that or let that fund balance decline. Your sources for that are either funding it from the general fund, funding it from your economic development fund, or you do also have capital improvement, and this is funded by your real estate excise taxes, which has some limits on what you can spend it on, but the limits are broad enough that pretty much anything streets wants to do with it is allowable. So that's one of those things one of the kind of questions and guidance that you might want to talk about is, knowing this for streets, do you have other sources of revenue that you could build up in the future for streets, like a transportation benefits district that you might want to enact in your town? Or are you going to make a policy that that's part of what's going to be funded from your excess funds that you have coming in from economic development? Or do you want to use your REIT funds to kind of break that even? So for streets right now, like I said, you don't have a lot of projects. So in years past, you've had a lot of grant income coming in and a lot of funds going out for building capital projects. One of those sources for your grants was you were getting some matching funds from the county. And it looks like that is probably dried up at least for next year. So one of the things I know we were talking about is for your capital improvement is holding and saving this, because you're getting about $50,000 a year in your REIT, your real estate excise tax income. And maybe you hold that and then do this TIB match in 2027 or future years and let that build up a little bit.
So we lost our TIB money that we used to use for a match with the county.
Okay, that was my question,
Yes.
because were we supposed to maybe do Hill Street from TIB?
Well,
Is that coming up?
we ended up, because we lost those funding from the county, we
Oh.
ended up just not applying for TIB for next year,
Oh,
for 26, because we didn't have the money until we started looking at this to meet the match. The match for TIB is usually between 50 and 100,000.
Yeah.
So with looking at this, we thought, well, if we did a project every other year with streets,
Mm,
then our capital improvement 107 fund could fund the TIB match without going in the negative.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
And so that was something that we discussed of looking at that and then just doing a project, like I said, every other year to make sure that we have enough money to pay for that in money that we're already getting in.
Okay. Well, it's too bad because we've been waiting for, I don't know how many years now to do a Mill Street. And
Mill Street. There's some things we have to figure out with Mill Street before we can apply for a TIB.
yeah,
Because there's that house with the
yeah.
corner issue.
We
It
gotta
will
make
never
that-
apply. It will never approve
You gotta
TIB
make that street.
with that, like that.
Yeah, right. But, okay,
You can
okay.
hit participants.
No, thank you.
But actually, I think she might pop in on Sarah. Sarah, you might see Theone pop in, because if you're the host, it might pop in for you to let her in. Because she just texted me and said she's running late, but she's
Okay, yeah, I'll watch for that.
logging in soon. But that's
So-
what we're doing with Mill Street, is we have to figure out what we can do with that house and that corner, that weird corner.
Yeah,
Because
right.
TIB will not fund a project if that.
Right,
go like
yeah,
that.
I know, it was talked about before, has to be a straight.
Yeah, so we've talked about different ways of doing that, but their Public Works is still working on
Yeah,
with our engineer to try to figure that out and get that figured out before we even apply.
yeah, right, okay.
Such a weird situation. Nobody's ever been able to explain to me why TIB cares that it's curved like that. They see it as a safety issue, but it's just the way the street has always been.
Yeah,
And,
Maybe that's a question for AWC to bring up at the big
so,
state level.
Yeah, or why some streets, if it's too wide, obviously they don't want to do it because then it costs more money, but I don't know. It's
they go
just,
by a scoring system.
yeah, and I don't know how they figured that out.
yeah,
That's an engineering Dustin question. Okay, go ahead,
So-
Sarah.
Yeah, so what we've talked about now is streets and the fact that it's at that you might use your capital improvement. It sounds like you want to wait and use that every 2 years for TIB match.
No.
In which case you probably do want to talk about long term, where is the funding going to come from?
Sarah is, sorry, is Theone waiting? Is the, like, if you hit participants, is she in like the waiting room? Hit the participants button.
No, participants. Oh, yes, sorry, it didn't pop up. There we go. It says joining at least. There we go.
For the record, I'd like to change my vote on hers now and have it be excused. All three of us.
Okay,
Okay, so as we discussed for streets, long term, you probably want to decide and think about how that's going to be funded. Since your just baseline operation expenditure exceeds your baseline operation income for streets. Parks and Rec, as we discussed, is pretty much fully subsidized by the general fund. This year, it's going to be $207,724 is what's anticipated. Your Fund 104 started off the year with about $77,000. You only have income in here, and this income is related to some payments that you're receiving from, I think, some construction house loans that is sporadic in nature, so we don't have any expenses associated with that. Your economic development, this is your incubator properties that you're getting income from right now. And what we've budgeted in here is for that starting in 2026. For one of the actually, I think I'm getting that confused. That's something that's in your general fund, isn't it? Your new property that you're leasing. So that's your incubator funds. And like I said, this full amount that we have in here for expenditures is just that transfer to cover streets right now.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
How do other cities or municipalities bring in revenue for Parks and Rec besides just transferring it from the general fund?
Yeah, it's almost always general fund. If they do have other sources of income for Parks and Rec, it's because they've done some sort of special district, or they have a special levy, or they have a specific source of income. Sometimes that's that they run their recreational centers on a more fee basis, where they charge members if you have a community center and a pool or something like that. So that's often what it is it's kind of a combination of fee-based things at whatever community center or rec center you have, and then special funding from usually that's something voted by the community that passes, or usually it's general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
well, I'm sorry, another question then. So we're trying to become a creative district.
Okay.
Would that fall under the Parks and Recs if we became a creative district?
Meaning for your income coming in for that
Yeah.
for your creative district. I'm not sure what the regulations are on that. I can look that up and let you know. But often for districts like that, kind of like your transportation, like if you had a transportation benefit district, which I'm a little more familiar with, that specifically goes to transportation purposes, and that's all you can spend it on. I would assume that for an arts district, it would probably funnel through either your general fund or your Parks and Rec, depending on what your Parks and Rec department actually does. So I don't know if you have murals and kind of community art within that, or if it's mostly just maintenance of parks and recreational facilities.
Okay, thank you.
But I can look at that. Okay, so, and then to your public safety reserve is where you are, for both police and fire, that is where they're kind of accumulating funds to then spend mostly on capital related items. So fire truck, police car, I think that they're repainting something this year as part of what's in there. I know we moved in order to get the general fund to balance a little bit better. You used to have some expenses in here that were related to body cam rental fees that are going to start going through the public safety reserve, since that's kind of a capital expenditure. So right now that's almost at it's a very minimal surplus. So you're only going to gain about $997, but that's balanced as well. That's not having to pull sources from other funds in order to balance. For your capital improvement fund 107, as I mentioned before, you're getting about $50,000 in. That's all from your real estate excise taxes. You don't have anything budgeted there as an expenditure. There's some restrictions on what you can spend your real estate excise taxes on, but one of those things is supporting capital projects or your streets fund through those. So criminal justice is pretty minimal as well. This 6,300 is some of that state shared funding that you don't really have control over. And then you have $3,561 worth of expenses in that. So you're going to build up a little bit more in that as well. Drug enforcement, this is the investigative fund assessment is your income for this. And then you have really minimal $320 worth of expenses anticipated there. Your tourism fund, this is your hotel motel tax that's coming in here to be the income for this fund. And the expenditures we have here are associated with funding all your various festivals and kind of projects and events in the region through the tourism fund. This hotel motel tax can be used for those types of cultural events, and it can also serve to support cultural centers or visitors centers. So I know that you've talked about the airport a little bit. If you were able to show and have backup and have some sort of level of tracking for how many individuals are coming through your airport that are spending the night there, you could also theoretically use some of those funds to support your airport, or at least a percentage of the airport. If you have a staff member out there, I think you guys were talking about having some sort of festival out there as well. And then your water and sewer fund is really where the bulk of your kind of surplus is coming from overall for the city, right? A lot of these are pretty minimal. And then we get to water and sewer, and we're anticipating growing that fund balance by $339,000. A lot of this is from your increase that you had for water and sewer for the rates there. And I know that part of this is the goal, which is to build up this these reserves here in the water and sewer fund, because if you do need to do maintenance, those are usually very large ticket items for doing any sort of capital expenditure. Since you do have more funds coming in there and you have less street activity anticipated in 2026, part of what we did change for the payroll, if we look at that spreadsheet, is if we have individuals that work across multiple different funds, we could split the percentage that is charged to those various different funds. So this is really kind of the only way that water and sewer can lift the burden of expenditures for the rest of the funds that you have at your city, because you can't have a proprietary fund, an enterprise fund like water and sewer, kind of subsidize and support your governmental funds. The only way that that can really assist is if you have more shared costs being paid by water and sewer. So since you have less street activity this year and you have more activity in water and sewer, that is one of the changes, is having the payroll reflect that change in kind of where your shared employees who are across multiple different funds, kind of where their salaries and benefits are being charged. So this is kind of the best of both worlds in that it is using some of your surplus here to bolster and assist the rest of your funds while also growing this fund balance so that in the future, when you do have those capital projects that you need to do, you have the funds to support that, and ideally, match whatever grants you need to do or be able to fund that within the fund itself. So one of the things, as I mentioned, that you maybe want to think about what you want to do kind of within the parameters and limits of what you can spend some of these funds are, is what do you want to do with your REIT funds, which we talked about? How are you going to fund this kind of systemic deficit in streets? And then what do you want to do with your economic development? Since right now, you have income coming in for that, but you don't necessarily have expenses tied to that. It's the incubator. So you might also want to think about having a kind of reserve balance or some sort of minimum fund balance in case you do need to do some improvements at that location. Sandy, am I missing anything other than what we just talked about?
Don't think so.
Did you have something?
I do, but go ahead.
Okay, well, back to the airport again.
Yes.
Now back on the airport fuel system, it's 84,000, but we're not making any predictions on what we're gonna on 2026.
Meaning specifically within the airport, what that's going to look like?
Yeah, well, in other words, how much are we're gonna be buying fuel,
Mhm.
and then we also people buy fuel, and so I guess I'm trying to say.
So you want to know how much we anticipate of getting for fuel prices?
Yeah, right, yeah, whatever, yeah,
So right now, what we have for the airport is that we're assuming that that's going to cost about $58,000 as the expenditure. And then if we go and look on the revenue side, let me filter this.
I didn't see that on the expenditures, I didn't.
So we have, what do we have here? So for airport fuel cells, right, we have 14,000 anticipated here. I think there might be one other spot.
8.6, okay,
Yeah.
Bottom.
okay.
So, to answer your question specifically with the airport fuel cells, I feel like there's one other line. Let me look at I know I looked at this for.
Airport fuel sales is on page 2 under 001-33450 on the revenue side.
Mhm.
That's where our fuel sales come in.
Oh, okay, I see what you're
Where's
saying.
that at?
Under
Right here.
charges for good and services, page 2 on the revenues. 001,
Oh, I thought.
34450 is the airport fuel sales.
Okay.
And we're expecting about 14,000, but
Oh, okay,
We've
26,
spent
14, okay, okay,
several more dollars than 14,000.
okay.
Yeah, and we didn't have anything budgeted for that. So essentially, what we were saying is we think it's going to be about 58,000 for the expenditure, and it's going to be about 15,000 for the income. So that would be a net loss of about $43,000 based off of how we have this budgeted right now for anticipating for that. Now, of course, this was made as of what happened through June of 2025 and then annualized out. So I don't know if that's going to change, but that's at least what we have in the budget right now is we're showing a loss of about $43,000 anticipated for the budget.
Because when the the fuel tank gets around half, we have to fill it again.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually we are recouping some of our costs that, we're charging more than what it's buying, but then when you have to then recalibrate something with fuel, then we had to dump it because it got too old
Yeah,
at cost. And somebody else, I think, was gonna buy it, but then we have to fill it again.
yeah, right.
So
right.
every time we fill it, it's a $20,000-$30,000 bill.
You
You
can
don't-
fill it with some left in it, and
Yes.
then it restarts that timer on the fuel.
Yes,
So we just need to be sure that before the time is up for it to expire, that we refill it.
yes.
Okay.
And it's not like you're taking an actual loss. I mean,
No,
the fuel that's sitting in that tank is money,
Yeah.
Right.
right? It's just, yeah.
I think
And
we
also-
make $1 or $1 something every gallon.
That's what we,
How long have we been selling fuel now? It hasn't even been a full
It's-
year yet, has it?
This year was the
Yeah,
year.
so we're not gonna really know the real true number. It's gonna
Right,
be a
right.
couple of years before it really
It's
starts.
gonna
And
be a
that-
minute.
And that's been expected,
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
year or two,
Yep.
hey, it takes a while to.
Yep.
get
That's how I
going.
look at it.
Yeah,
But it's not like.
we're investing in our future.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not just pouring the fuel down the drain and
No,
losing
Right.
money.
No.
That we have money tied up in it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but that fuel in that tank represents money.
yeah,
Yep.
And as I discussed about the $58,000 expenditure associated with the airport, 41% of that, or 23,700, is things other than the fuel. Anticipated cost for personnel for doing some work there, operating supplies, insurance, utility services, things like that.
so Mylan had brought that up, but I had a question also about the
Yes.
possible funding, or things that we could use the funds from the Economic Development 105 funds.
Mhm.
And that would be, and I don't know how feasible or how smart it would be, but I mean, we're getting money in for economic development. We had gotten a grant to get that incubator building. What is the possibility that we can get another grant for the incubator, or for another incubator building exactly like the one that we had, but now this time just take a little bit more time building it so that it's more user friendly in the beginning rather than us having to go back and then add stuff? Is that even a possibility? Or, because I mean, if we want businesses here, that's how we get money, is through sales taxes of things that they spend.
We would just have to look and see if they offer that grant, because it was kind of a last minute grant that they offered.
Mhm.
I haven't seen anything else come through that they're offering that kind of grant, but if it comes up available again, we certainly know what to do and what not to do on some
Exactly.
of those. And because it was so short, I think there were some things that fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
If they did that again, I'd probably deny the grant application to do it again in that short a time frame.
Right.
If it's a normal project time frame, I think it's great because it does work and then it was funded. But if that comes across again, but as of right now, they don't have that grant available anymore.
Well, even if we could find a grant that was available, I would say the time frame would be fine. We would just know to after they were completed with their stuff, we would need now extra time to add on to the rest. And that would take a little bit of money on our end, I'm sure,
It would have, yeah,
but at least we'd be doing it right.
yeah,
And it would eventually bring funding in.
yeah.
I mean, just a thought.
So, but yes, if that comes up again, then yeah, we'll definitely bring it to the council for consideration.
And because there were no restrictions associated with that grant for what you can use the kind of profit income from that, right now, the funds in your economic development grant are unrestricted, meaning you can kind of spend that on whatever you deem as a need for the city, which is why we're using right now some of that to kind of balance this street fund. You are still growing that by almost $15,000 for the year. So over time, the anticipation that it's going to be about 166,000 as the fund balance by the end of 2026. So you could also use that as a source of matching funds if you find a grant to build future incubator type buildings.
I have a question, or I'd like to bring up something. You know, we, at one time, a couple of years ago, we had an expenditure for an animal control officer. That got switched over to a different department head, and then that got changed again, and then the police never. So I'm wondering what happened. Why are we not putting anything aside for animals in this town?
We
have a
got
lot-
another police officer for those funds.
I know, but I'm wondering, where are we going to try to expend any money at all towards animal control? For next
So that
year?
all goes through the police department fund, and the police department chose to have another officer, which is part of that CAPS grant fund. Because we still have to have the rest of their income and benefits paid out of their budget. So they chose to do that instead of having an animal control officer, because there wasn't enough in the budget to do both.
We're not gonna run it through I understand that, but we took it away from the police department. Remember that?
It's not, it's always been through the police department.
Brought it-
That it always is through the police department, but the building official was acting as the animal control, but it was still going through the police department budget. The animal control is strictly in that budget alone. And
So-
always has been.
What are we gonna do now that all of those have failed to continue to try to help that gap, I guess?
There's not enough funds left over in the general fund as it sits right now to fund another position. We would then be in the negative.
There's no other fund.
So Theone, before you logged in, we talked about this, and it was on the page that she has up right now. And if you look under the first column where it says current expense, and you look under 2026 surplus, not counting fund balance at the bottom, that's $73,000, $771. You see that? Do you see that, Theone?
Let me look at the screen here.
So
Yeah,
it's basically, it says that we should be adding $23,000 or $73,000 by the end of the year in the general fund. That is not enough to cover a animal control, because they use the funding towards that other police officer, and that's where the funding would come out of. If we got an animal control right now, it would cost more than that $73,000 that is carrying over. We wouldn't be able to sustain it, is what we, before you had logged in, we had spoke about this, just so that
Okay.
you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Be sustainable.
Exactly. So we could afford it for 1 year, but we wouldn't be able to sustain it after that. We wouldn't be able to continue to grow at all. We would actually be losing money after that. So although it shows that we have the $73,000 that we should have at the end of next year that we could use towards it, it would never be sustainable. with the funding that is going on right now, with a 2% increase.
So, but we're also in talks with the county because they got a grant for a animal shelter.
Right.
And so we're still kind of working with them if there's a way of sharing a cost or using their person. We don't know what that'll come of, if anything. I mean, that would be something we could, you know, possibly afford to share a cost for, you know, 1 or 2 days a week in the city, but they're still working on that along with Dave has gone to several meetings
commissioner.
with that. So did you want to, anything else with that?
That's right. They're kind of at the beginning stages of even trying to select a location that would be suitable for an animal shelter. We've had meetings with the county a little bit about that. You know, they kind of go back and forth between where would be good. They've been talking about the fairgrounds a little bit, but then there's the issue of water, sewer. And then they've been talking about out past the wastewater treatment plant possibly. But yeah, there's been no actual decisions made. And the county commissioners are also working with the sheriff's department on that, and that brings up a whole nother another subject there, I reckon.
So we are working on it. It just won't be funded for next year.
Understand. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I've kind of gone over all of the funds. Are there any specific questions anyone has about any of the funds or the sources of revenue that we have for any of this?
So I guess the question you had for the council, Sarah, if I'm right, is what to do with that street fund deficit moving forward in the future? Because for next year, we took some out of the economic development fund to pad the street fund a little bit, or did
Yes.
we take it just out of the general fund?
That is transferred from the economic development to streets, and then it's for parks, that was what was coming from the general fund.
Right.
So in the
Yes.
past, we have done that in the past of looking, what we have done for several years is doing a streets transfer from economic development. That's been kind of a common practice for several years if the streets, because streets cost a lot of money, but they don't make a lot of money.
That, you said that's been, for several years, but that economic development fund, that's strictly, the incubator money that.
There's always been some money that's been put in there and it's always, because we used to transfer our sales tax stuff into the general fund. And then the general fund would transfer it into economic development. And then the economic development would transfer a portion of it into streets. So it was kind of a swap. And they used to do that quarterly. But then when Jen came on board, those monthly, quarterly ones weren't being transferred quite correctly. So we stopped doing those quarterly transfers that way. And instead we do it monthly the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Streets gets their portion, fire and police get their portion. And so we don't do it that way anymore.
Yeah.
And so we stopped that quarterly transfer. And so, but now we just look at it on a annual basis of, does it need more funds?
So wouldn't it just be easier then just to keep it the way it is and transfer as needed when we need it to the?
And that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. That's what we did here.
Yeah,
It was
that's what I
just short around 22,000. So
So
we
wouldn't it be
can take
easiest
it.
to do that because you wouldn't want to allot it to those and then have them,
Right. So
It'd be
instead
too
of
much
just
money.
doing just a transfer
yeah.
to cover just to transfer, we're only covering to transfer if it's in a deficit.
I say keep it the way you're doing it.
So
I mean,
It
right?
still makes it so we're in the black at the end of the day.
correct.
That's the main thing.
And we did not put in here the money that we'll be getting from the leasing of those 5 lots because
Mhm.
we
Right.
haven't gotten that contract yet. my last conversation with them was yes, they're going to go ahead, but they're waiting until next year.
So I think that that needs to be a lesson to all of us on the council, that if people are wanting to lease stuff out from us, let's take it and not try to negotiate too much with them as long as we're not getting our handed to us.
Happened a couple of times that way.
But I don't get it. It never should. It never
I
should.
agree.
So that one, we just, that would be about, I think, 90,000 of income if it goes through, and that is not included in this.
Cause that's a big,
That's a big if.
we don't know if it's gonna happen.
And that'll go into probably economic development when we get that, the same as other, we'll have to figure out where to put that, because I'm not sure if it.
Thank you very much. This is so much easier to understand than it has been in the past, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
appreciate the breaking it down for us.
Yeah, and if you have any questions when you walk away, just let Sandy know and she can pass that along to me and I'm happy to answer that. Right now, my only takeaway is you talked about having a arts and culture district and what those funds could be used for. Is that the only question of this? Okay.
Correct. And that wouldn't be completed till at the earliest next year sometime. So it
Mhm.
wouldn't account for anything at all during 2025 whatsoever. But the arts, so it's a creative district, meaning that talks about food, it talks about farming, all of those things fall under creative district because of the wool from the farming comes from it. So it can actually be used in a lot of different arenas. It's not just art.
Okay.
What we think of as art, it's a creative district. So that's a little bit different. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I'll research the RCW for the limits on what you can use that funds for.
Awesome, thank you.
And we also didn't include if the sales tax that we supposed to be voting for in November, we did not plan on that in here as well.
Good,
In case we don't, that doesn't pass,
right.
Mhm.
which Facebook was very negative about it.
Yes.
But
Well, and then additionally, the county commissioners are considering enacting a 0.10 criminal justice sales tax. With that tax, they don't have to go to the voters. They can just do it amongst themselves. I went to the county commissioners meeting last Thursday, and the end result would be they would share some of that money with the cities. And Goldendale would be projected to receive approximately $40,000 from the county. Now, they would give us $40,000 out of that, and then they would say, you owe us that money back for increase in your jail fees
No.
and your probation services. But it's pretty good because we knew that they were going to
Mhm.
start charging us more for those jail fees and those probation services and the court fees and so forth. We've known that for quite a while that they were gonna up that on us. But now they're looking into giving some extra revenue to cover that.
So
So
it'll
it's
kind
gonna
of be a
be-
wash.
It's gonna be kind of a wash for us, but
it's better than not having it,
Right.
just gives us
Yeah,
increasing our price.
yeah.
So. Anyway, so anything else anybody has for Sarah?
Sarah. Then you did bring up the sales. tax
Things
one.
that we need.
If that does get approved,
Hold on just a second, Theon.
when does it start?
January 1st,
Of 26?
yeah, is my understanding.
Do you ever
I could be
just,
wrong.
Like, how much money every year that would be?
I don't, because it would be split between fire, but I don't know, I'd have to look and see what our annual was and then figure out what's a 0.1%. So I wouldn't have any idea how to, except for, because I'm assuming it comes in our same sales tax stuff. So we'd have to see at the end of the year what that is. We'd have to wait till December.
So who puts in the for or against on the voters pamphlet for it?
That's a question. I don't know.
we advertised,
I think that it'd be smart for us to try to get something in there.
oh, it's too
Too
late.
late.
They had to have a for and against, which we couldn't find. We advertised for somebody to say a for and against and didn't find anybody that's willing to do a for or against. but I think the county put something in there, the auditor's office.
Yeah.
Put something in for a for and against.
I was working with Randy Sullivan on that, and we went through the steps to advertise that. We advertised in the Sentinel. We advertised on our website. We advertised on the Facebooks. And we also hung up some flyers at the post office and what have
Here.
you. And we got 0 takers on anybody wanting to be on either a for or against committees. And I communicated that with Brandy at the auditor's office. She was guiding me along the way of how to do this stuff. And so then the auditor's office sought out for against committee, but I never heard if they were successful in getting anybody to do that or not.
We did put a blurb in there that, you know, in the voters pamphlet that basically says we're talking about 0.1%. So every time you spend $100, 10 cents would be divided up between police and fire. That's what that money is being used for. So we did spell that out, but,
Yeah, a lot of this tax and they just wanna say no.
and it's a
But
negative.
then they want police officers and
Right.
fire protection.
So I don't know what it'll come of it, and I assume that it starts January 1st, but this is the first time that we've done that.
I did have a conversation. I don't know if it would actually start January 1st or if it would start on the second quarters.
Oh, it could be. I know we have to pass something else and then I don't know what we do after that. We've never had to do this before, so.
I think if it would have been on the ballot for the primary, and it's just one word,
Yeah.
then it could, the revenue could have started January 1st. And that's when Bingen had theirs on the ballot.
Yeah.
So I think this is correct. They know.
Did you post?
The annexation that's going on for the. Next week. They were supposed to start.
Oh,
So ours might be the same if it passes, but I wouldn't hold your breath,
Yeah, right, yeah.
so.
And
I should know this, but when do we, the council finalize this budget? Is it November, or
I
December?
think it's November and then part in December, I believe.
Okay,
We have to have a public hearing. There's also levy information
yeah,
for revenue sources. We have to fill out and pass that. So in the next few council members, remember what the total date is, Sarah?
I don't. I know that it has to be done by, I want to say early December, but I think the levy has to be done by the end of November, and then you have your first council meeting in December is historically when you've passed this.
Yeah, so you'll see that coming through the 1% levy
Yeah.
tax that we do every year.
and didn't Theon have a question?
Yeah.
Jill?
Leon, sorry, you were talking, what was your question?
I was just gonna ask, when, you ended your presentation, you said that there were 4 more things, or there were like a list of 4 things that we just needed to decide where we wanted the money to go.
Say that again, sorry, it was kind of cutting out.
We needed to decide on a few things on where we wanted those funds to go.
So we kind of discussed like the 107 fund to keep that money in there to match for TIV, the Transportation Improvement Board for streets. And then we were asking about if we wanted to, for economic development, still transfer to help cover streets. And it sounded like there was a consensus to continue that.
Okay, all right. And that was okay. I just wanted to be sure we were on that page.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
so I think this has been a really good workshop. I've learned more about the budget this year through these processes than I have any year that I've been involved in this. Even when I was on the city council and on the budget committee. Meeting with all the department heads, having these budget committee meetings that we've had a couple of, and in this workshop. It's enabled me to wrap my head around it a lot more than I ever have before, so I appreciate that. Sure.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
thanks, Sarah.
So we'll, roll with, from what I gather, we'll roll with the numbers we've been given here and, proceed from there, huh?
Okay,
And then we have to finish the agenda stuff.
Okay, we'll move on to, well, thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate all your work on that and your patience with us as we,
Mhm.
as we work to grasp everything.
It's been good. Okay, I'm gonna jump off then, so.
Alrighty, thank
See you
you.
later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, great. Well, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda then. If anybody would like to make a report of officers, we could do that. Theon, did you have anything you would like to report?
No, I think that's just talk, I mean, the biggest thing was I want to figure out what we're gonna do about the animals in this town. It's getting close to winter. From what I understand,
Gonna be an ongoing conversation.
you hear me?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no, as far as I know, the spay and neuter, clinic in Lyle and all the way up into Portland aren't taking any animals for the next several months. So I think that people in town are freaking out a little bit, and they were just hoping to get some support. And I knew we were going to have a meeting tonight. I just wanted to know if we were all on board of figuring something out, of what we're going to do for the animals in this city. And I'm so grateful to hear that the county got a grant for that. So I want to know I would love to reach out to that, whoever is working on that and help out. How can I connect low-cost clinic with the new shelter or whatever I can do to help? I want to. Anyway, that was kind of a thing, and I'm so grateful she broke it down. I love how she broke that down.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
That is exactly what we needed, and I'm
Mhm.
yeah. So I really didn't have much more other than being able to squeeze it in. I do want to talk about the park plan, so let me know when we're going to have a meeting for the park plan.
Yes, I definitely will. Thank you, Theon. Ellie, did you have anything? Andy? Daniel?
I just have a plug for the American Legion.
Yeah.
So we got a chef in from Mary Hill Winery, and one of the best prime ribs I've ever had in my life was last Friday night. It was delicious. He's doing really well, and we're open Tuesday through Friday. So if you know of any veterans or anyone who has a family member who was a veteran, have them stop on in. They're going to be doing this kids things and different stuff for the community that they're setting up. So it's good for the entire community.
Highland, did you have anything?
No, they all passed tonight.
Oh,
Thank you, Mayor.
Sandy, did you have anything?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, neither did I then. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. It's open public comment. Is there anybody else on the line that would even be able to make a public comment?
Nope.
There's nobody here in person. So we'll close public comment and I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. I'll move.
Second.
Andy moved and Ellie seconded.
Yeah, we're not thinking about that.
Anybody like to talk about adjournment?
Well,
I'm teasing. I think we need about 10 minutes, though.
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
So Shelley, last meeting, it was so funny